Hey guys, welcome back to the AJ Analysis channel in the Scouting for United series, where today we have a video which is a little bit late notice, it's a little bit last ditch, and that is because Manchester United are apparently interested in Højbjerg, or Højbjerg, there we go, got there eventually, from Tottenham Hotspur, of course, the Danish midfielder, 28 years old, very experienced, played at the top level for a long time now. He's played for clubs like Bayern, Southampton, he's worked with Pep Guardiola, of course played at Spurs, rated by a lot of different managers. But in terms of Manchester United fans are not too inspired. Today I'm going to bring you his strengths and weaknesses and talk about it as a signing in general. So before we continue into the video, a quick shout out to today's video sponsor, JerseyFifa.com, the home of all of the greatest football kits. Whether that be the new latest releases or the old classic ones like this, Jersey FIFA has something for everyone, and now you can check it out yourself using the link in the description down below. And also make sure to use code JerseyFifa for 10% off when you order. So we'll start off with parts of his game which you simply cannot question. Højbjerg is a brilliant he has a brilliant mentality. He's a very hard working player, very experienced, got a real engine to the way that he plays, he gets up and down the pitch brilliantly. His work rate is incredible, you can't question it. His mentality, very good. He is a leader on the football pitch, without doubt, we can all see that. And in general, I think his psychological and his mental profile is a very good one. He's also good from a defensive point of view in general. So yes, he has that kind of hard work, that engine to get up and down the pitch. But it's not just about that, he also has a brain up there as well when it comes to defending. His reading of the game is really impressive. This is something which Pep Guardiola has spoken about several times in the past. Højbjerg's ability to read the game and kind of anticipate the defensive side of things before they even really happen. It makes him very good at intercepting and also putting tackles in, and he's very, very good in his duels. This is a very strong player, bit of a physical monster. You don't want to go into a challenge with him because he will come out on top. He's very fierce in the way that he plays. That's obviously quite a good combination. He's got a real kind of ferocity, I guess, to the way that he plays, but it's also smart how he plays as well. Now, he will pick up the occasional booking and make fouls over the course of the season, but in general, his intelligence makes him a better defender, more so than what his kind of physicalness does. But of course, if you're going to combine the two, that's a very nice combination to have. But at the end of the day, people will also want a player which is good on the ball to represent Manchester United. Because United have got that ball winner, in a sense, in Casemiro. United want more than that from Højbjerg. And other managers have wanted that as well. Other managers have wanted more from him. Pep Guardiola has famously once said that he thought he found the new Busquets when he had Højbjerg at his disposal. That's a big old compliment. Now, of course, he never got to that level. But he is genuinely underrated on the ball. He's a very decent passer of the football. We can see that in the numbers here. Passes completed, passes attempted, passes completed short, medium and long. All genuinely very decent. This is a high volume player. Someone who, if he comes into the side, either in Casemiro's role or potentially in Eriksen's role, someone who in the first phase is good at making himself available for the pass. And that is so valuable for a football team to have. It doesn't matter how good you are on the ball. If you don't have the intelligence to make yourself free and available, it's kind of irrelevant. But Højbjerg is someone who's good at dropping into these areas, making himself available for the pass. Now, in terms of kind of getting on the turn and being press resistant in these areas, he isn't press resistant. He's not someone who's going to drop a shoulder on the half turn. However, I wouldn't say he's a pressing trigger as such in these areas. So he's not press resistant, but his retention in these areas of the pitch is still good. His first touch is normally very good. He does still turn well to an extent. He does protect the ball quite well. So without being a specialist in this area or anything particularly exciting, he's certainly, going to keep possession for you in these areas. He's quite reliable in this position, is probably how I would describe him best. In terms of from here moving forward, we've already seen he is a good passer of the ball, often keeping it quite safe, which I know in the past has annoyed Spurs fans a little bit, that he kind of keeps it a bit too sideways, a bit too pedestrian, keeping the football a bit too safe with his passing. However, if we go back to his FBref report and look right at the bottom there, he actually ranks in the 79th percentile for progressive passes. So he has his reputation for being a bit of a sideways player, and he is sideways first most of the time. He is also actually pretty good at moving the ball forward. At times he can be incisive with his passing. At times he can also be a good carrier of the ball as well. Now again, he's not someone who's going to kind of draw a man in and then beat a couple of players and kind of wiggle through. That's not what you're going to get. But again, open space, area to drive into, he can do it. He can carry the ball forward with more kind of engine to his game than the likes of Christian Eriksen and Bruno Fernandes currently in the midfield. And he's also a better ball carrier than Casemiro as well. So again, he's not particularly press resistant. He's not going to wiggle his way past players. He's not going to be exciting with the dribble, draw people in and beat 2 or 3. Not his game. Give him a bit of open space though, and he will drive into it. A bit like Scott McTominay-esque if you like. But in general with Højbjerg, what you're getting is reliability on the ball. Someone who keeps the ball. Now at times, that's dull, disappointing and a little bit boring. However, at times, you do need that. Especially at United. United have a lot of players in the midfield which want to get the ball forward quickly. Eriksen, Bruno Fernandes, Mason Mount, Casemiro, they all get the ball, want to move the ball forward at quite a high tempo, quite a high speed. Højbjerg is someone who will slow it down a little bit more. We can also see though with this FBref report, in terms of the passes attempted, rating in the 87th percentile, that shows that not only does he keep the ball when he gets it quite a lot. Now I wouldn't say as far as metronomic in terms of he doesn't completely dictate a game. He isn't like a fulcrum point for the side, but he is good on the ball. He will get a lot of touches, regularly making himself available. He'll often drop into almost fullback positions to get the ball, so perhaps that could work in the Christian Eriksen role. Maybe if Casemiro was the holding midfielder. We saw a lot last season, Eriksen would drop into this wide left position to get the ball. That is the sort of thing which Højbjerg likes to do in possession, so we could see more of that. Also, if he was to play in this role alongside Casemiro, he's actually better in the final third than what you might think. Again, by no means a specialist, he's not going to set the world alight from this position, but he is pretty creative at times. Some of his forward passing, if you kind of go through his catalogue of assists in his career, there's some pretty decent moments in there. Now, you can argue that for most players, and you can make any player look good with a highlight reel, but I genuinely think the Danish man is underrated with his kind of end product in the final third. He also has that occasional long shot, although I wouldn't call it reliable. He's pretty well rounded as a midfielder. He does a lot of the basics really well. He's a good retention player. He's going to keep the ball for your side. He's pretty decent with his passing. Again, he's going to keep the ball most of the time. And then he can add something in the final third as well. Those are all, of course, positives. But Højbjerg, like any other footballer in the world, has negatives as well. And I think you particularly think there must be some with him. The fact that Postecoglou is potentially willing to let him leave to a rival. That kind of suggests there's something wrong with his game. And I do agree, he does have problems. Whilst he is a good retention player in the first phase, he is not press resistant. He simply isn't mobile enough. He isn't nimble enough to receive the ball under pressure and kind of turn away and wiggle forward. If you've seen Spurs in the opening weeks of the season, Bissouma has done a brilliant job of dropping deep, absorbing pressure and then beating that player. Højbjerg in that situation, rather than beating his player, he just keeps it pretty simple with a pass. So he's not great in that way. Like we've said already, he's also not a dribbler. Someone who's going to draw players in and then carry the ball forward. He isn't that. And for that reason, I would say he's not really a problem solver in the midfield. Sometimes you're coming to games where you're either facing a lot of pressure or a team's particularly deep. You need to have that ability to solve the problem. Of course, the manager's going to apply different tactics during a game, absolutely. But I like footballers which can problem solve themselves. I don't think the Spurs midfielder fits that category. I don't think he is a problem solver in the middle of the park. Some of that is because of a lack of mobility. Whilst he is hard working and he's got a good engine, he's going to get up and down the pitch and cover a lot of ground. He doesn't do that in a nimble way. He's quite, rigid in the way which he turns. He's not going to drop his shoulder and go past someone. Again, he's not going to wiggle through something. I just don't think he is a particularly good problem solver. He also isn't the quickest as well. So from a defensive point of view, let's say he was used as more of a 6, I think this could be a problem. Because let's say you've got Eriksen and Bruno Fernandes pushing a little bit higher. With Højbjerg kind of covering the space behind them, you haven't got a lot of speed there. And we've seen Casemiro struggling for that very reason in the opening weeks of the season. United are quite open in the midfield, leaving this holding midfielder with a lot of work to do. If you don't have the mobility to get about the pitch at high speed and intensity, you're going to struggle. And I do fear that Højbjerg would have that problem. And just in general, I'm not sold on it. I think you can probably tell. I'm not over the moon with his positives, but I'm also not massively affected by the negatives as well. I think all round you've got a good footballer here, someone who could be a very decent squad player. I think if he was to come in and be expected to be United's number 6 or even a starting 8, I wouldn't be too fond of it. I don't think he's a specialist in any real position, and I think United needs some specialists in the side. You've got a lot of players who can do a few different jobs in the team. United needs some, like I said, some real specialists in this area. Højbjerg isn't that. Like I said, in the first phase, he's decent, he'll keep the ball, but he's not going to do anything exciting. In the middle phase, again, he's safe, he's decent, but at times he kind of passes the ball off like it's a bomb a little bit, like he doesn't want it. He wants to get it off to someone else and let them deal with it. He's not someone who, properly grabs hold of a midfield in possession and really takes control of a game and dictates everything. He might have a lot of passes, but a lot of the time it feels like he gets stuck a bit in matches. Matches get kind of intense and hectic. There's lots of quality on display. Højbjerg can kind of get a little bit stuck of knowing what to do, and he kind of resorts back to old habits of just passing the ball backwards. Now again, United need that to an extent, but it's all about balance. You need a player who can do both, and again, I'm not quite sure that Højbjerg is that. At the same time, he is a good retention midfielder. He would be genuinely one of United's best retention players in the side. I do believe that, because United have so many players which want to play forward. So Højbjerg would go some way to addressing that. Defensively, he's also one of the more intelligent players as well, with Rafael Varane in the squad probably being the only one which is more defensively intelligent. I mean, obviously Casemiro is very good defensively, but his decision making is a little bit questionable at times. Højbjerg, I wouldn't say, has that as much. So, like I said, I think you can see that I'm just genuinely a bit uncertain on this one. Of course, it's not going to get anyone excited because you're signing a player who, you know, the Tottenham Hotspur manager doesn't think is good enough to be part of his starting 11 and maybe not even part of his bench. So it's hard to get excited about it. However, I do see the reasons behind it. Like I said, he's a good retention player. He is good defensively. He's a leader. He's a real experienced player. He's mature, but at 28 years old, he's still got plenty of years ahead of him. I see the pros and cons of it. My view of it is, if he's brought in alongside another new midfielder, I don't mind it at all. He's a good little kind of backup for Casemiro. He could maybe at times come into that Eriksen role for more defensive security. I don't mind it at all in that sense. If he's expected to be a first teamer, I just don't like it. Those really are my final thoughts on Højbjerg. Again, if United want to do it on a cheap deal, get him in as a squad option, I actually think it's quite smart alongside another better midfielder. If it's the main midfield signing, it's a no thank you from me, but let me know what you think in the comments down below. Are you inspired by this signing? Do you at least understand it, or do you think it's just completely daft? Let me know what you think in the comments down below, but apart from that, I am finished for today's video, so thank you guys for watching. I hope you have enjoyed it, and as always, I'll see you in the next one.